Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SubQuery Investor Series, where today I'm very pleased and very lucky to be talking to Jack Platts from Hypersphere Ventures. Jack, thank you very much for making the time to talk to us.
Hey, James. Good to talk to you.
It's we've been trying to get you on for a long time, and for a good reason. You're one of the most connected people in crypto and Polkadot. So why don't we start from the top and tell us a bit about yourself and Hypersphere?
Yeah, sure. So I got into crypto about four and a half years ago now, and helped launch the Polkadot project from Web3 Foundation. So went to Berlin and Zug and dove into ecosystem development and leading some of the efforts there around the launch, and found that we were spending a lot of time helping teams with their go-to-market strategy and launching on Polkadot. And so we launched Hypersphere about 2 years ago. And since then, we've launched 3 or 4 funds. The first one was pretty much exclusively Polkadot related, because there was a lot of work to do there. So we partnered with SubQuery as well as pretty much all the parachains that won their initial crowd loans on Polkadot. We were advisors, seed investors, and contributors to those projects. So that's been awesome to watch that ecosystem kind of launch and the parachain shards come online over the past 3 or 4 months. And we've increasingly, in our latest funds, we've increasingly focused on a cross-chain focus now that multiple L1 blockchains have launched and matured. So now, instead of just having a bunch of Polkadot folks in our fund and Polkadot related investments, we've increasingly focused on bridges, middleware that connect all of these thriving, growing L1 ecosystems. So we brought on a couple new partners from the Near and Tezos ecosystem and Ethereum ecosystem, and I've been working with Avalanche and Celo and Terra, and it's been a lot of fun to kind of come up the past 2 years and try out software that's not just in one ecosystem, but in many. And so that's us. We have a team of about 10 or 15 people, mostly investors and developers. We're a remote first team, but really headquartered in Miami, Florida. And yeah, and excited to dive in about the latest updates on SubQuery.
Yeah, so you started 4 years ago or 3 years ago as the head of collaborations at Web3 Foundation, right? Which I guess the title says it all: collaboration, connections, partnerships in this ecosystem. Can you kind of share a bit to the community around how important that is at the start, how important it is in terms of like growing a community like Polkadot, but also growing bigger and kind of expanding to other ecosystems?
So it's a great question, because there's a state of the world today in which there's X number of developers, Y market cap, and this many use cases. But over the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen, since I joined the industry, I've seen the rise of L1s, the rise of DeFi, the rise of NFTs and metaverses, and all the infrastructure tooling along the way to enable these kind of innovations and compressing of development times for like entrepreneurs. So the pie has increasingly grown as we've seen, which is why all of us are kind of in the industry, right? Because it's fast moving, it's growing. And so whenever I think about collaboration, it's kind of the sum of there's just a lot more to gain from working together in collaborating than there is from kind of competing. And you see this with a lot of the ecosystems that have embraced collaboration and built literal and bridges or figurative, marketing bridges to other ecosystems, have continuously outperformed those that have been more tribalistic. And for that reason, we are really proud to welcome many, if not all, the top L1 foundations to Hypersphere as partners, and are able to make connections for the projects we work with, like SubQuery, to empower them to go out and have a multi-chain focus from day one.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Right now we've got this massive hyper growth phase where our industry is expanding at a huge pace and an accelerating pace, some might say. Do you think we're going to have this contraction at some point where there's a lot of duplication of effort and there's got to be some winners and losers? Or do you think we're going to continue to expand into this industry that's so big to support multiple people doing similar things in different ecosystems?
Yeah, I think it depends on the vertical. So we definitely see and it works also in waves. So there's times of more exuberance in the marketplace where people come in and are able to raise money and launch projects. Kind of, we call it copy pasta, of just the DEX or a compound fork or Uniswap fork or whatever on an EVM compatible chain and kind of move fast. But then the question is, can they innovate and go beyond what has been tried on Ethereum, basically? So in many cases, that question's still like outstanding for many projects, and it also depends on whether they're doing DeFi or whether they're doing something else. So we'll wait to see how that works out for everybody's teams. But overall, I think looking at it at the L1 layer and the blockchain layer, there's definitely room for it's not clear to most people, to really anyone in the industry, if there's kind of the blockchain that where 80% of applications are built on top of is a top 5 chain today by users and market cap. Like, I think that story is still very much being written, and trade-offs are being debated in terms of the decentralization and tactics and community that each of the different L1 ecosystems have. So I know that's not a very good answer.
No, it's fine. It's a difficult question, and I guess we don't know until we find out, right? We just sit around and wait another 3 or 4 years. But I guess as you've come through, you've been here for the last 4 years, you must have seen some trends emerge and rise and fall potentially. What trends are you seeing now from your experience that interests you?
We've been focused on cross-chain infrastructure, and that has brought us to focus on middleware and bridges. So we've invested in and partnered with a number of bridges that are maybe Polkadot native, like Interlay, that connect Bitcoin to Polkadot, or more generalized, like Layer 0, that connect currently all EVM chains and soon to be other chains, as well as at the middleware layer, things like SubQuery that are now on multiple chains, and Polywrap that's wrapping applications on multiple chains and making them composable. And that's been our focus, and I think is a very hard problem, as we've seen with some of the exploits in Wormhole and Ronin, and where hundreds of millions of dollars has basically been drained from kind of these multi-sig like bridges. So there's a lot of innovation and a lot of risk still happening in that space, but and it's exciting because we're able to add some value there, given our experience in launching different L1s. So that's been cool. Something a little more fringe is I've gotten into like this regenerative finance and just like movement a little bit around climate and what Toucan's doing, which is a bridge, but it's a off-chain to on-chain bridge, moving carbon credits on-chain and empowering things like wacky experiments like KlimaDAO that increase the price of carbon and stuff. So that's been kind of a fun thing to learn about and see if there's another use case for crypto beyond what the main ones are today.
Yeah, I quite like the idea of pricing carbon credits and putting every tree on the chain, right? Like that tree is planted, it grows. Putting that on chain and tracking that a bit better than just a number on a spreadsheet somewhere. I think that's an excellent idea. I'm really interested to hear about. I find there's sometimes like two attitudes out there. There's an attitude where there's this one chain will win all, will win outright. The chain will be a king, or there's this attitude where multi-chain is the future. And I guess all of us in the Polkadot ecosystem generally have this multi-chain view because Polkadot is kind of multi-chain inherently. As you go to other ecosystems, are you seeing a shift towards that view, or do you still see a lot of zero-sum kind of winner takes all?
I think there's a lot of blockchains that have been incredibly, and their ecosystems that have been incredibly collaborative. So this has resulted in multiple bridges forming. I discussed Wormhole that connects initially 4 blockchains and now includes others, including like Akala from the Polkadot ecosystem, and more kind of isolated blockchains kind of coming and connecting to that. So I think that's definitely the trend. Is ARC is towards sharing liquidity, sharing data, information, users, interaction across the different blockchains. And the question is how that works out. Is it kind of, and Vitalik had a great blog post on this recently, but is it kind of, a multi-chain future where you kind of have these bridges connect them and they have these different trust assumptions, or, are they all kind of built, more with a sharded architecture and everything lives under and settles on one blockchain, which, given the fact that Solana, Terra, Polkadot, Near have such large treasuries, such robust communities, such smart people working on them, and kind of infinite runways, it's definitely, none of them are going to stop building in the next 36, 48 months. So I think the question is, do they collaborate in the meantime or not? And so far, like I said, I think the teams that have collaborated more have been rewarded for it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, and I find personally that reputation is everything in this industry, right? People realize and learn who isn't a good person to work with, or a good team to work with, and it hurts you down the road. You have to, it's a team sport, really, isn't it? So I'm really interested to know, Hypersphere, you've mentioned about your thesis around looking for infrastructure, looking for cross-chain collaboration, looking for these kind of themes. What else about the team, let's say, attracts you to an investment, or what other kind of points you're looking for that aren't necessarily about the product or the product vision?
So we focus on seed stage and then partnering with projects over the life cycle of their launch and mainnet and go-to-market and maturity. So whenever you're looking for teams at the seed stage, you really are making a bet not on how much product market fit it has, or if it has it, will it scale it, and how will it scale it? Is this the team to scale that product market fit? A lot of these teams don't yet have product market fit. They have, like when we met with SubQuery for the first time, they had basically like a proof of concept that was doing a ton of transactions, and that was kind of a hosted service, and then a vision for this gradual path to decentralization, and this plan to integrate with multiple parachains and eventually multiple blockchains. So we were really betting on Sam's tenacity and his ability to build a team. Like, have you joined and others join, and but it was already clear that based on his work at with On Finality, that he was able to build something rather quickly, and then it was built on something that we really liked, which was Polkadot, and so you kind of had that tailwind and that marketing tailwind behind it. So kind of entrepreneur, what they're building, where they're building it, are main things that we look at, and then how does that coincide with our view of what our understanding of what's been built so far, and how this is kind of hopefully an improvement beyond that in some way. So there's kind of a balance between kind of like long-term research and kind of an idealistic view of what to build, and then practically what can be built, how fast, and like who's going to use it and when. So we really like to invest and partner with entrepreneurs that are pushing the boundaries, but aren't totally like science projects. So yeah.
Yeah, I was reading one of your blog posts recently where you're going looking into one of our Moonbeam, which is one of our partners, and we work very closely with them. But you were commending Moonbeam specifically for their go-to-market approach and how effective it was. What makes an effective go-to-market approach in crypto? Because it is quite different from the traditional world.
Well, yeah, I'd be curious also your view on this now, integrating with Avalanche and Polkadot parachains and having other blockchains on the roadmap. So, as you experienced firsthand, there's the platform you're building on is able to provide you a lot of support, and there's a lot of touch points and communication on the marketing and development side that you and maybe grants that you expect or hope for and rely upon to launch your blockchain or launch your blockchain application. So I was kind of commending Moonbeam for the, and this is the testament to Derek, the CEO of PureStake, which launched Moonbeam, and his experience, because he kind of knows how important kind of product is, and really is interested in the upstream dependencies, Etherscan integration, Chainlink integration, graph integration, that a lot of teams need to build on an EVM compatible chain quickly, and go out and make sure they happen. So they'll do a Chainlink integration soon, which will enable one of our projects, Moonwell, which is currently only on like Moon River, which has Chainlink, to then launch on Moonbeam. It'll allow Layer 0, which is a cross chain, like an omni-chain protocol that relies on Chainlink for some of its kind of trust assumptions between all these different blockchains, like to integrate Moonbeam. And so they, prioritize that. And then if you're in the chats, you want developers to answer you and to tell you if there's breaking changes for their blockchain, because you don't have a blockchain, they have the blockchain that they're upgrading, right? And you rely on them. So how that is all done and communicated will decide where applications with limited bandwidth integrate first, or if they integrate at all.
Yeah, no, they definitely made it easy to get a jump across, right? For us, go-to-market, it's kind of really an interesting transition over time, over the last year and a half, where at the start we're going out and we were kind of banging on people's doors and saying, this is what we have, this is the effort we're putting into it, this is what we think it solves, we want to help you, we want to work with you, and kind of being humble around that, some humility around it's still in progress, it's still being built, and we're focused on it. We have a laser focused on improving it, but we need to learn from you as you use it, how we can improve it. So a bit of humility at the start, but over time that transfers into, as you get more and more customers, it's less around going out and talking to one specific lead or prospective customer. It's around how do we set up these processes to allow 100 customers to start using our service with as ease as possible, as easily as possible, without any touch points or without any issues or friction they talk about. So as a transition from going out and asking and kind of banging on doors to ensuring the documentation, the onboarding guide's good, the reputation's good, there's a plethora of different examples that you could easily mix and insert in and play with. So yeah, it's been an interesting transition from that to this kind of more inbound approach. But as we go to new layer ones, it all starts again. It all goes back to zero. And you know that reputation that you have in Polkadot, yes, it's kind of important, but doesn't really mean that much in these new chains. So like, who are you? So kind of going back to not maybe square one, but square two or three, and starting that process again. But you know, reputation travels fast. Reputations, it doesn't go away, and people respect the effort that you put into these things. So we're finding it. We're being welcomed in, I think, is the main point.
That's great. Yeah, and so the how do you build that that reputation or build that awareness for SubQuery as you're going to these different chains?
Yeah, we're trying to do a lot of community communication. So when we work for the team, we make it we try to do like a weekly announcement of a new customer or a new partnership, where we will go through how they're using SubQuery, what SubQuery solves for them, links to their projects, links to their code, so that people can see all these examples and are living, breathing examples, and not these empty partnership announcements that you see all too much in this industry. That's one of the best ways we find that we kind of grow that reputation, because people in crypto, the first thing, if you don't have any customers, they look at your investors, but if you have customers, they look at your customers. You know who are your customers. That's like how reputation is measured. It's customers, then investors, those two things.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So yeah, it's about working as closely as possible with customers and making sure that they're happy, but also communicating that success, that shared success with the world.
Cool.
So Jack, last question. I always ask this. Is there any advice you'd like to give someone thinking about jumping into the blockchain industry, thinking about leaving their job at some other corporate or some other industry and getting involved?
Do it. I think it's something that we've seen a ton of people do. I don't know if people need any encouragement or advice from me, but the past year we've seen a rush of creators and designers and folks we didn't see in the first, like when I joined in like 2017, 2018, it was kind of the marketing side was a lot lighter. And I wrote business development into that and basically anything besides coding into the marketing side of things. And there wasn't many of us focused on marketing. And now it's increasingly more, which shows kind of the maturity of use cases and applications and end users kind of finally becoming a priority. Whereas before, the end users, for even still what we invest in and partner with, is the end users are usually developers still, but increasingly it's becoming real people trying to solve or experience new things online. And so that's really cool. So you're seeing people more focused on product join as well, from Web 2 and traditional tech platforms. And I think that's really exciting. So I don't know what the next kind of wave looks like, but if I was joining now, I'd go work at SubQuery or Layer 0 or some of these cross-chain innovative platforms.
Well, we're certainly hiring. We're not just hiring developers, right? It's one of the biggest
Yeah.
misconceptions is it's just jobs for developers in this industry. No. Marketing, BD, those are some of the hardest roles to fill, because it requires you have to learn very quickly, and it's a very strange and different way than you probably were used to doing things. But yeah, it's interesting. Well, hey, Jack, thank you very much and for joining us tonight or this morning. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, James.